People who haven't slept for so long that they start hallucinating. What did you experience? A buddy of mine landed a painting job working inside of a big commercial building, and he basically stayed in the place for 6 days straight, smoking drugs and painting to meet his deadline and avoid hiring a crew to help him. On the 6th day, the building caught fire, and he ran into the lobby and was pulling people out into the streets and yelling to call 911. The firemen showed up and couldn't locate a fire because there was none. He was hallucinating. If you don't sleep for a long time, these damn shadow people appear. It's bad for you. You shouldn't do it. For a while when I was active duty, I got really paranoid about the shadow people for obvious reasons. You have no idea the relief I felt when I found out I wasn't the only one who saw them. I really thought I was losing it, but man, I was just exhausted. As soon as I start seeing shadow people while driving, I know I need to pull over. The only problem was, I started seeing them at 3 a.m. behind the wheel, and was so scared of the hallucinations I didn't want to stop, because I thought if they did, they'd get me. But I did stop and sleep, and they went away. Your like and subscription will really help my channel. I was driving home after a 3-day non-stop binge on drugs, needed food, so drove into a McDonald's drive-thru. When asked for my order, I replied, "McChicken meal, please." Then they asked me against, and I said, "McChicken meal, please." Then they asked me again, and I was like, "Can't you hear me? McChicken meal." And that's when I realized I wasn't actually saying anything, I was just replying in my head. I went roughly 4 days on 5 hours sleep total. I could function fine, but I would just constantly hear things like people mumbling right next to me. During the day, it's not so bad, but at night, when you know everyone is asleep, it definitely plays with your mind. My mom suffers from narcolepsy, and one of the first treatments they gave her basically drove her completely insane. She was up for 5 days. One day, I walked into her bedroom, hearing her talking to someone. I look around and ask her who she is talking to, and she tells me the lady in red. There is no one in the room at all, just us. I ask where is the lady, and she says the lady sits on the dresser and talks to her all night. I was like 14 at the time, so I went to the kitchen and hid her medicine until my stepdad got home and could take her to the hospital where they changed her medication. The woman in red never appeared again. Yeah, after 70 hours or so, it's pretty disorienting and rational thinking starts to get very slow. The hallucinations are not realistic, but are more like gaps in your vision that are shaped like things. Might see a silhouette at a distance or briefly around a corner. Very difficult to function in this state. Would not recommend. I hadn't slept for about 72 hours when I went to the emergency room. Doc gave me Ambien. I go home, get in bed, and take one. A few minutes later, the floor was covered in water and the walls were melting. It was raining outside, and the water on my windows was marching in formation. I've never known whether that was sleep deprivation or the effects of Ambien. I've never taken another. During exam week, I pulled 3 all-nighters in the library between tests. The library was open 24 hours, so I'd just stay up all night making note cards, then go take an exam during the day. I'd go to the most isolated area, but the library would pretty much be cleared out by midnight. I started to see glimpses of people, and I thought it was a bunch of students joking with me, but there was no one on that floor. I thought the lights went off at some point, and maybe it was a sensor, so I started jumping around to reactivate it, but obviously it was light the whole time. Overseas on a deployment, started getting sleep deprived for a period of time, started hallucinating the big palm trees moving across the road, like in The Lord of the Rings when the trees walk. It's almost a regular occurrence for me by now, because I suffer from insomnia. There are 3 different types of hallucinations for me. Funny, useless shit I know is fake, shit that could be real or not. Extremely scary and traumatic shit I know is fake, but rattles me up every single time. Usually, they appear in that order. Pro tip, if you are experiencing visual hallucinations, and you aren't sure whether something is real or not, take a photo with your smartphone and look at that. It is very unlikely that you hallucinate the same shit twice, and in the exact same position. I suffered from horrific insomnia about 12 years ago. I was on Lexapro, and one of the side effects is insomnia. At the time, that wasn't well documented, so I tried everything from Ambien to alcohol so I could sleep. I would usually get about a 3-hour nap at most before being awake again. I would go 3 to 5 days without sleeping. Eventually, I started taking recreational substances to finally get some sleep. I was on day 6 without sleeping at least 5 hours. I was laying in bed, and a friend came in to start talking with me. We used to communicate a lot, but hadn't talked in a while at that point. I told him how bad I was struggling and that it was really hard for me to live. He said he felt the same way many times, but that it was a terrible idea and how badly it had messed up his family. When I looked at him, he was a bloody mess on the side of his face, but talking to me like nothing was wrong. He had been dead for a few years at that point, shot himself in his garage after years of substance abuse, and I just had a 3-hour conversation with a hallucination of a dead friend. I ended up switching meds, and my sleep issues disappeared within a month. Your like and subscription will really help my channel. Thanks a lot for your donations.